Shane Waldron has been fired. The Bears making a move with their offensive coordinator. Breaking news. We're calling this the emergency pod ahead of the regular show today. We're all here for you. Stick around. Nine games, 4-5 record. Matt Eberflus has concluded his process and has decided apparently sometime last night that Shane Waldron is no longer going to be a part of the Bears organization. The Bears have fired their offensive coordinator. Thomas Brown is being promoted. This is the CHGO Bears Podcast with Adam Hogue in his car on the way to talk to Cole Kmet, Nicholas Moriano, Greg Braggs. Yours truly, Mark Carmine, with you here. Guys, I'm kind of bummed that I didn't say it yesterday, but when he got up there at his press conference yesterday and he was going through his process and it was taking more time, I think it did sign that or pointed to that something significant was coming as far as Shane, and we are here today. Hogue, why don't we start with you? What's your instant reaction to Shane no longer being the Bears offensive coordinator?
Yeah, let me do a little bit of an information dump here because I did a little reporting on this yesterday, and first of all, like I've never really heard of a coach like sort of announcing that he's going to make a change without actually announcing a change. And I know from talking to a number of people in the building yesterday that it left everyone kind of in limbo. Like, usually on a Monday afternoon, coaches are turning the page to the next opponent, starting the game plan. And I'm sure they were still doing that to a certain extent, but everyone on that offensive staff was like a little bit like, well, what's my role? What am I going to be doing this week? Do I want to waste my Monday afternoon working on all this stuff if I'm not even going to be here? So it was a weird position for a lot of people, I think, to be in yesterday. And I got to be honest with you, like my understanding of this is that Matt Eberflus really was going back and forth. And even though he essentially promised in the press conference yesterday that some type of change was going to be coming, I don't think that even at that time he knew what that change was going to be. Was it going to be an outright firing of Shane Waldron? Was it going to be a reassignment of duties within that offensive staff? And I got to be honest with you, I went to bed last night thinking that the most likely outcome was actually going to be that there was going to be a change in play caller, but not necessarily anyone actually fired. More of like a demotion for Waldron, but he's still on the staff. So I'm not exactly sure what changed. Maybe Flus just had to sleep on it, but I mean, let's be honest, guys. This is the move you have to make. I think demoting him or trying to keep it in limbo on who's actually calling the plays would have just created an untenable situation for the coaches, a confusing situation for the players, and not a good situation for Caleb Williams. You had to just outright remove Shane Waldron from this picture. It's just it would have been crazy not to. So I don't know exactly what changed in the last 12 hours or so, but I guess credit to Matt Eberflus for making this decision, because it's the right call for just trying to keep things in order however you can the rest of the way here this season.
So there are two offensive coordinators fired this year. It's kind of there's some irony in it, right? Luke Getsy out in Las Vegas, and now Shane Waldron out in Chicago. Nick, Greg, get in here. Your reaction. I know Braggs, you were hoping that it was going to be the head coach. A lot of people thinking this buys Eberflus some time. to right the ship. I'm sure he's, was looking at it like, this is probably my last move here. I have to get the offense going. What's the best move to do it? And he decided that Waldron being a part of it was absolutely not the case.
It's a joke to me. Ryan Poles, has failed this team the last 2 days. Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron should be fired right now. They should have been fired after the game on Sunday. You want to wait until after the Packers game or the Vikings game or after Thanksgiving or even before you eat your Thanksgiving dinner? Is that when this is going to happen? You're just delaying the inevitable. And Matt Eberflus might be a nice guy. He might even have some respect as far as his coaching prowess. But at the end of the day, your record is what it is. Yes, you started in a rebuild, but you have failed this team this year. You have pointed in the last 2 years more than a handful of games that you can directly point to his decision-making is the reason, the difference between a win and a loss. Now you have players for the last 2.5 weeks coming out every single day and saying, guys aren't practicing hard enough. They're not detail-oriented. That is on you, Matt Eberflus, not Shane Waldron. The buck stops with you. And so I'm hearing yesterday, Jalen Johnson, guys aren't practicing hard enough. 2 weeks ago, Cole Kmet saying, it's about what you do behind the scenes. Matt Eberflus, why aren't you saying these things? And so you can give Shane Waldron the scapegoat all day. That's fine. But it ain't over for me yet. Matt Eberflus, you're next.
Yeah, we saw it in the chat. I think it was Julie who put it like, it seems like Flus is a January firing, if anything. And that would go against everything that you want, Greg. But this is the right move for the Bears to make, because when you've watched what this offense has been unable to do these last 3 games, it's been everything. From blocking to having route concepts make sense for the playmakers that you have to just getting your quarterback comfortable in these games. You had to make this move. And for Eberflus to have a worse day on Monday than the game looked on Sunday in terms of speaking to the media and trying to present himself, it just all led up to this moment. But for Shane Waldron, you just couldn't keep him. He was the play caller. If he wasn't going to do that in this building, there was no reason to keep him. Like what Adam was saying, this is only creates confusion if you were to keep a guy like this in the building. Now you have Thomas Brown, who obviously called plays for the Panthers in 2023, will take over those responsibilities, but you couldn't have Shane Waldron here. There was no purpose for him to be here if he wasn't going to call plays, and now he's out.
I'm seeing my guy Skeeter saying fire everyone but Caleb, which gets to the overall what's most important right now. This is a nightmare for the Bears. You went out and did everything to get yourself in the position, got a lot of luck to get the number 1 overall pick, got the franchise to be, fired the OC, went and found somebody who you wanted to pair with him. 9 games in, he's out. That's horrendous. That's a nightmare. And you have to look at their process. And I'm not trying to, there's a lot of things going into it. There's a lot of people's opinion out there. But the fact that we sat down with Jackson Smith and Jigma for all of 38 seconds, and the guy literally had to ask if we were live because he wanted to go in on him or just not answer the question, that was a horrible sign. So you have to wonder, your process and your ability to figure out who should be where. And I know that there's a lot of people talking about Trace Armstrong right now, and maybe Hogue, you can get more into this, but Trace was Eberflus's, Poles' agent, and he was Waldron's agent, and the whole network just spins. This is who you should hire. And so guys, maybe taking the easy route versus, maybe making a bold decision.
He was once an employee of George McCaskey, as a player on this team.
Right. So you really have to look at the Bears process here.
Yeah, that's the point. That's the point. You've got Matt Eberflus choosing Luke Getsy and Shane Waldron, and now he gets a third swing of the bat. That's to me where it's unacceptable. He should not be allowed to continue to roll over offensive coordinators. The buck stops with him.
Yeah, guys. I look. Just more importantly, well, not more importantly, the process sucks here. I mean, there's no way to defend what has transpired here since January. It was one thing to make the decision to bring Matt Eberflus back, which, I think we are all sort of on the same page there. Probably some of us felt a little bit stronger about restarting the whole thing, which now looks like the move that should have been made. But I do think it was defensible to keep him around. But if you were doing that, and we said this at the time, you did all this right. So to make an offensive coordinator hire, which was the next step, right? So you decided to keep Matt Eberflus. You absolutely had to nail the OC hire. And to not only have failed at that, but for it to only last 9 games and to see Caleb Williams regress the way he has the last 3 games, like Carm said, it's a nightmare. It really is a nightmare scenario. Now, all that being said, the only correct way to fix this is to make a move now with whatever chips are in front of you to address this the rest of the way, these last 8 games. So we can play the blame game all we want. I'm sure they did it in these deliberations the last 24 hours. But all you can do now is come up with some type of solution. So, is this Caleb's fault? Partially, yes. Is it the OC's fault? Partially, yes. Is it the offensive line's fault? Partially, yes. Are the wide receivers getting open? No. It's all of these things at once. But it was going to be untenable to just keep the status quo. And the only thing you could do to fix all those problems starting right now this morning was to get a new voice at the top of the offense who will hopefully have new ideas, who can hopefully start chipping away at fixing this. And that's the only choice you have right now with 8 games left, because 8 games is still a lot of development time.
And that's the thing. You got a quarterback who has a ton of belief in himself, who is probably moving forward as fast as he possibly can with this news. And, he was asked about this, and he's like, they're not going to reinvent the wheel. We're not putting in a new system right now. So who, and I guess Thomas Brown's the guy here. So can he get to some level of logic, which is what Flus was talking about the other day? What are you good at? What can you do? How can we make this as easy as possible so we can start seeing some success? That's the questions that I would be asking if I was Matt Eberflus to Thomas Brown. How can you simplify this to get our guy into some rhythm here? Because that's what we need.
Yeah, I wonder too, with Thomas Brown, all we can go off of last year with Bryce Young, and we all know how that kind of ended up for him in his rookie season. The thing that the Panthers didn't have, though, that the Bears do have, are weapons on the outside. That's something that Bryce Young in his rookie season with Thomas Brown calling plays didn't have the luxury of. So I wonder how he's going to look at this current Bears team, given the status of the offensive line, knowing that you do have some playmakers on the outside and a quarterback that we know can make throws, but just like we've been talking about, as we regress the last 3 weeks since that game in London, how can he best put these guys in a position to make plays? Put the players that you think should be running certain types of routes in those positions in the first place and have Caleb read those guys 1, 2, 3 in that direction. And I think if Thomas Brown could do just even put those players in positions, unlike Waldron, that's already going to put this offense in a better spot than it was the last 3 weeks. But we have to wait to see how that all goes. And it's really going to be how this offensive line comes to becoming better at full strength, because without them, I don't know how much better this gets. And to me, this is just a temporary fix, because realistically, you guys, at the end of this season, you're losing Eberflus. This coaching staff might likely change. So it's a temporary fix for these last remaining games of the 2024 season, but really just a wasted year in terms of Caleb Williams' development in how this whole process is supposed to go. So yes, it could be a temporary fix, but in the end, I don't know if this is going to be. It's not going to be what you obviously wanted for a rookie quarterback going to his first season in the NFL.
Yeah, but let's tap into that for just a second. Ryan Poles' dream scenario here is that they turn it around and he does not have to fire Matt Eberflus. I still believe that he would love to see this turn around and he'd be able to say at the end of the year that we went through some rocky waters, really rocky, but what I bet on was that our guy who stood through tough starts before, got us through this again. He's still dreaming of that, man. Otherwise, he would make a move, I would think.
Well, he's rearranging chairs on the Titanic. All due respect. That's the truth. And so you're sitting here. I mean, how many coaches have been fired under Matt Eberflus's watch now? Because we're not just talking about offensive coordinators. Alan Williams last year let go. A running backs coach let go. The entire offensive coaching staff let go when the season's over. Now Shane Waldron goes. These are all your guys, Matt Eberflus. So I'm sorry. You had an opportunity these last few weeks in the start of the season with the schedule you had to get out to a fast start and have Eberflus finish a season where you're fighting for the playoffs or even potentially make it. That ship has sailed. Forgive me for giving up, but until they show me that there's something drastically different, and even if you were to make all the changes you want to make, the offensive line in its current state is decimated. So good luck to you playing a team in the Green Bay Packers who, at least a couple weeks ago was leading the league in sacks. Good luck. And you have a rookie quarterback who's playing like a rookie quarterback. So like you said, Nick, this is a temporary fix. There's a bigger picture at stake, and that's why I'm really disappointed in Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren for not doing what needs to be done. I know it's not the easy decision, but it's the clear and obvious one and the most logical, and you chose to go a route and make Shane Waldron the scapegoat today. Have at it, but let's see what happens here on Sunday because I'm not feeling good about it. I already sent in my prediction to Pat Norton, and it ain't a pretty score.
So here's the thing, though. So we have what Carm just painted as Poles' dream scenario, and then we have what Braggs' dream scenario, which was to fire everybody. Neither of them are realistic. Okay, I hear you, Greg. You're not saying anything wrong. George McCaskey's in charge here. He ain't firing a head coach in the middle of the season. And everybody who's a Bears fan is just going to have to live with that or become a fan of a different team. Because
that doesn't mean I can't be critical of it.
No, I know you can be, but I'm just saying, this isn't Matt Eberflus making Shane Waldron the scapegoat. I mean, maybe it is to a little bit, but you have to make a change here. I don't even think this was Ryan Poles' decision to make. I think if Ryan Poles wanted to fire Matt Eberflus this morning, he probably wouldn't be allowed to. Now we could debate all that and how ridiculous that is. That's true, but that's just not reality. And meanwhile, your dream scenario for Ryan Poles to not have to fire Matt Eberflus, man, that was 2023. That already happened. You survived the rough waters. You got it all back together. He did enough that you were able to bring him back. That doesn't exist again this year. I mean, it really just doesn't. So, and I understand how ridiculous it sounds that what I just said, they contrast each other so much, those two different scenarios, that you would think in the middle of all that, you would just make a head coaching change in the middle of the season. But guys, it's the Bears. This is how they operate. And until they decide to operate a different way, we're going to keep going through these cycles that we're consistently in covering, this all feels like deja vu because it is.
But that's the point, Hogue. That might be their reality in household, but the reality is their process is broken. And they said they wanted to break the cycle, and this cycle is continuing. And if you're a good business, then you are going to recognize the error of your ways and fix that. If you don't care about looking like you're incompetent, then you'll continue to go down this path. And so I thought hiring a guy like Kevin Warren was a sign that George McCaskey had understood that his decision-making was broken. But if you're just going to bring him in and let him be the new Ted Phillips, I'm not going anywhere as a fan. I'll be here long after George McCaskey and Kevin Warren are gone. I'll be here after all these players and coaches are gone. So I'm not giving up my stripes as a Bears fan. I'll be here through all the disaster. But at the end of the day, somebody, I don't care. You want to talk about reality? People saying, well, stop going to the game. Stop watching the show. Stop doing it. That's not a reality. I'm going to be here. So I am going to be critical, whether I'm not going to accept what they want to say is the reality. Just like as a Cubs fan, they want to spend money just because that's their standard doesn't mean it has to be mine.
Let me just get to some level of logic here and maybe you're right, Hogue, that the Bears won't follow the logic. But I said last week, What happens if we have the same scenario of the Arizona game, 29-9? We do it again to the Patriots, which is exactly what happened. 19-3 is 29-9. What's going to happen? And what happened was the offensive coordinator got fired. So what's going to happen if they come out on Sunday and lose to the Packers 19-3, 29-9, 31-14, whatever it is? And the team looks like they've quit on the head coach. I understand they've never done it, but I think it's on the table. Now, the other side of that, logic-wise, when we're talking about both ends, let's say they beat the Packers and then come out of nowhere and they win one of the next two against Detroit and Minnesota and somehow sneak their way into the playoffs. I understand, unlikely, all of that, but you're telling me they're firing Flus? I don't think they are. Now, I think it's going to land somewhere in the middle, and they'll get to the end of the season and it'll probably go exactly how it's always gone. But if they get blown out this week and the crowd's going nuts, I don't know, man. That is it just might be untenable to go forward with the guy if the whole team is basically quitting on him.
I still don't see that being the scenario, Mark. I think what most people are expecting is that scenario. The Packers go to Soldier Field like they've done the last decade, whoop the Bears' ass, and then it just goes status quo with how you go the rest of the season. You have the rest of the division coming, obviously, and the 49ers, Seahawks, tough games on the slate. But regardless of how this season, I just don't think Flus gets canned at any point in the season. It's going to be a January firing, and that's going to drive people insane. But that doesn't mean that the offense can't look better in these games, and you get some semblance of there's at least some progress with Caleb Williams. But I just, how this is all played out, it just seems like the writing is almost on the wall for Matt Eberflus. There's been so much dysfunction and not enough positive progress that you could say he is the guy that can lead us to where we want to be. How much time do you have to go through this type of dysfunction to eventually think that he's the guy? It's just not going to happen.
If they lose the next 3 games against their division, 2 at home against Green Bay and Minnesota, and then lose to the Detroit Lions, who will drop 60 points on this team on Thanksgiving, and they don't fire anybody, Nick, we can all go to a park in Chicago and everyone can line up and chuck meatballs at me. That would be absolutely atrocious if they go through these next 3 weeks and lose to every team in their division in probably ugly fashion, and they still don't do what needs to be done with a 10-day period in between their next game. I have a hard time believing it, but I have a hard time believing they didn't do what needs to be done this week.
Wait a minute. Let's get this on the schedule. So
It's on
Turkey
the schedule.
Bowl Friday after Thanksgiving. That'll be after the Lions game.
Yes.
Which park are we going to? And can the meatballs be frozen?
Pick the park. The meatballs cannot be frozen. They have to be edible because I will be hungry. And if they do not fire Matt Eber, you know what? At this point, either way, if he gets fired or doesn't get fired, just start chucking meatballs at me because I have never been more depressed about my Chicago Bears in years. And I just need something to smile about. And maybe a meatball or two might do the trick.
So okay, we're all in. Although I'd rather you just have to jump in Lake Michigan or walk in off the beach and just watch you go under and just leave you out there. That kind of would be my preferred thing. But we can do the meatball thing. Look, to your disgust, Braggs, and all Bears fans.
I think Carr just confessed to murder live on the show.
Yeah, I think so.
It's about time. I've been threatening him with murder for the last 2 years. So
we all know where I stand on this situation as far as Greg's death. But I love you, Braggs. You know this, and we love our love-hate relationship.
As we murder each other, we'll be crying because we'll miss each other.
That's exactly right. So look. Let's just remind everybody, and it's bad right now with the scenario that I'm talking about here, but what the most important thing about this season was the quarterback, all right? And so the last 3 games have been an absolute nightmare. We can rewind back to Jacksonville and 4 touchdowns, and there's that, and then there's 360 yards against the Colts, which a lot of them were, empty yards, but it happened. It still remains the most important thing the rest of the way is to get Caleb back headed in the right direction so Bears fans and the organization, more importantly, and Caleb and the coaching staff can feel optimistic and confident about where this is heading. So that really, at the end of the day, is what matters. Can they do it? I have no idea. But that is still the flag that should be planted out there. Let's leave this season in good shape with the QB going forward. I don't know how they do that. I don't know if Thomas Brown can do it. He's going to be talking on Wednesday, but that's what matters.
Yeah, real quickly, you guys, before you jump in here, Hogue, Cameron Wolf just had a good tweet about Thomas Brown Jr. Players voted new Bears OC and play caller Thomas Brown. It's a number 2 in top offensive coordinator NFLPA survey last year. Brown is well liked, but also intentional and demanding of his players. Maybe what Bears need to get a spark into Caleb Williams and his offense. So if you're looking for positives, maybe Thomas Brown is that light that Caleb Williams needs right now.
Absolutely. They need somebody to be tough on them. That's what they're asking for. Mercedes Lewis after the Colts game was like, going to Shane Waldron, you got to be tougher on us. They're talking about details at practice. They need somebody in there that's going to light a fire under their asses and demand some accountability through the details. They need somebody like that.
Sorry, I love the Mercedes Lewis thing. It's like his Jason Hayward contribution. The guy's he's caught one ball in the end zone where Flus got to yell big dog, and I know he's been a great leader in that locker room. So he is the Jason Hayward of the Bears minus the World Series. Hogue, what were you going to say?
I was just going to tease that later on. I actually already have a list of solutions that I think that a new OC can get implemented by Sunday. So we could talk about that later on today on CHGO Bears, which will be at 1 p.m. Central Time. But in the meantime, to Nick's point there, sometimes a change in voice really can make a difference. I mean, we can look at the tape. We can hear Jalen Johnson talking yesterday about guys doing things the right way. We've heard Cole Kmet talk about this. You see it on tape. I don't think the effort has been consistent. I don't like the visual of a Patriots player picking up the quarterback and patting him on the head. I don't think, I don't think all the routes have been sharp enough, run with 100% effort, let alone 110% effort. Sometimes more like 80. There are, and I'm not saying it's consistently like that, but unfortunately, it tends to show up when they're being targeted. And obviously the quarterback needs be a lot better too. But the point is that sometimes guys they get in the funks because the message that's coming from the coaching staff starts to ring hollow. And when you have as many coaches as the Bears have on their staff, and you start to put in passing game coordinators, run game coordinators, offensive coordinators, it's not just the fans that kind of make fun of that. And they're like, what does that mean? It can show up in the locker room too. Like, what is it exactly that this guy does? What does this guy do? All of this is happening behind the scenes in meetings that the players aren't in. So they're confused too. And so sometimes if you have a guy who, I think one thing we can all agree about Shane Waldron, and this was a knock on him coming in to even begin with, is that this guy, he might scheme things up. He might install things great. He might be a good teacher, but he doesn't necessarily command a room. So sometimes you just need a change in voice. And all of a sudden, you do that, your rival's coming to town. And by Sunday, maybe the effort looks completely different on film, even if they lose. But to me, that alone gives them a better chance to hang against Green Bay on Sunday than if they had kept status quo. If they had kept status quo, I think they would have lost by 40 points.
So hold on 1 second, Bryce. I'll get to you in 1 second. But let's look. When the Jackson Smith and Jigma thing happened, that's what I started asking around about. And the feedback was he's horrible, not good in front of the room, doesn't command the room. And then he had his first press conference, and I was like, oh my God, what was that? That was
the press conference actually happened first, if we're going to get the timeline right.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Okay, I forgot about that. Regardless. And then move forward into his season. And last Thursday's show, we did it on his cuts because it's just like, you can't, how can this be the guy communicating? It doesn't make any, it has to be a problem in the room. And I would like to say thank you to the Bears today, because we will never have to hear another Shane Waldron press conference. Not to dance on his grave here, but they were so painful. Go, Braggs, go ahead.
Yeah, just some different quotes from Sean McVay that I'm looking through. He was the assistant head coach for the LA Rams when they won the Super Bowl. And some of the different things he says here. This is Sean McVay talking about Thomas Brown, saying he's got such a unique, educated, and impressive thought process as it relates to a lot of things outside of football. That's why he's also the assistant head coach. I lean heavily on him with some things where he runs some leadership group meetings. He has a great pulse for the team. And then he adds on to say a few other things about him, and that were, his everyday approach is something he is cited. He has great experience when he first connected with him, and so one of the things he said too was where he talked about like the top things that he does, as I'm trying to find this quote, so I apologize. But, he to me, if a guy like Sean McVay believes in him in this way, I think it's the right fit. But he's also still been in this room for the last 10 weeks. So it's hard for me to understand, well, where was this? What was your role on this team here the last 10 weeks? And what's for me to believe now that you're in charge, it's going to be so much different. You've been here. There's a consistency to him that McVay cites. And he says, I think the biggest compliment I can give to him is the consistency at which he approached every day and how he built towards, him becoming an OC eventually in Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see if that consistency and the way he speaks to the leaders is something that changes. I don't know. I've kind of lost faith at this point in the entire process.
Nick,
Nick,
you got to
sorry, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. Thomas Brown interviewed for the OC job, right? And they picked Shane Waldron over him, and then he didn't necessarily get a job anywhere else. So then that's where they kind of brought him in as the passing game coordinator.
Yep, that's correct. I mean, there was a long list. I think it was like 8 or 9. Like there was a long list of guys that interviewed for the job, but they did ultimately choose Waldron.
So let me just make one final point here, and we'll be back at 1:00. And Hoag's got Cole Kmet with the 85, and that's being released tonight at 7:00. Am I right about that, Adam?
Yeah, it'll be obviously interesting to hear from Cole today, but that'll air at 7 p.m. tonight.
So we made a joke on the show on Sunday where, I brought out the back-to-back softball championship thing and how I would be happy to help lead. Well, there is one thing that I have learned in running a softball team that I'd like to see the Bears apply here, and it's in any team. Hoag, you can speak to this too. You could have the most talented guys in the world. If they're a pain in the ass and they're not playing hard, you'd rather have the less talented guy who's going to try. And I'm not trying to go at DJ or Keenan or whoever, but you've seen some really off things right now. And the fact that Tyler Scott hasn't seen the field for a second, or Colin Johnson, who had moments in preseason, if these dudes are not getting open or walking off the field, put somebody out there who will not do that. I don't care how much he's making. That has to be a part of this. And not just at wide receiver, but all over the field. If you think that Jack Sanborn is going to run harder to the football than Tremaine Edmonds, well, then go that route. Put the dudes out there that are going to give you the best effort. Have some standard that way, and it will impact the whole team. If you keep running out dudes that are not giving you their all and aren't as dialed in or complaining or whatever, that ain't going to work. It never does. So I would like to see some level of not just kissing up to the leaders of the team, but let's and maybe it'll go down in a terrible way and he'll lose everyone. But you put dudes out there that are going to absolutely run through a wall for you is what I would tell them to do. Thank you. Anybody else want to say something before we close this up?
No, I'm sure we'll have plenty more to say here at 1:00 Central. We're going to be running this back, and I'll do my best not to repeat myself, but at the same time, it's, to me, that's all that needs to be said. So, but I'm excited to see, I'll try to see what everybody's saying, and we'll carry a new perspective here at 1:00. So make sure you guys all tune in for that, and make sure you're hitting the like button. All 3,000 plus of you tuned in live here early this morning for the breaking news.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Of course, we're a place for breaking news. When any Bears news, we're also here every day, Monday through Friday. We also got you for pre and post. If you're new to the show right now, hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you hitting the like button on the way out. Back at 1 for our normal show today, the 85 tonight. We will see you at 1. Thank you for watching. Steven, thanks for producing.
We do have a few. Sorry, we do have a few super chats if we want to roll through those.
Yeah, let's do that. My bad. Back in Point, 199. I see you right now. Morning, boys. Thanks for being up early. Thank you for being here back in Point. We appreciate you. Inner Orbit Pinball, $2 CHGO is the only enjoyable thing about the team. We appreciate that, Inner. We hope that's not going to be the case going forward. Marky Mark, Flush is not a leader of men. That's funny. Just toileted flus. Okay, $9.99. Michael Rudzina. Got to get rid of this no-huddle set where they take forever at the line and make slow read adjustments. Defense often changes their show. It hasn't worked. It stalls rhythm. No more slow huddle. Maybe we can dive into that a little bit more later. Sivaram Yiramati, $9.99. If you look at the press release, it says that Thomas Brown was part of the staff that helped the Rams win the NFC North. This organization is a dumpster fire. Can't do anything right yet. Okay. Good call out there. So they were not in the NFC North. That is whoops. You know, it was a quick morning over there. These things happen. I would never get something like that wrong. Neither would anybody on this show.
Yeah,
our details are perfect. Yeah.
Can I say one more thing? Do we have more supers?
No, I think we're done. Go ahead.
All right. I just want to say this was my most enjoyable morning stuck on the Kennedy. I think we should do this more often. You know, I'm not as stressed as I normally am. I think we need to start a new show called Stuck on the Kennedy, where I just sit here in traffic and talk about the Bears.
I am the complete opposite. I could not be more stressed. And of course, I knew it last night. I said, hey guys, I have a parent-teacher conference that we have all the parents do every fall for my daughter. She's 6 with her teacher. And I said it was at 8:00. And I was like, I have no doubt that this news will break as soon as this meeting started. And it literally did as soon as I sat. They made me sit in the little kindergartner chair too. I had to somehow get down into this chair. Oh boy.
I was on my way to the gym, man. I had pre-workout coursing through me, and of course, right when it happens, turn around. But yeah, it's a good time. Good time.
That's what we do.
I did it perfectly. Poppy had her walk. The coffee was ready. I was in position. I mean, you know.
All right, please let my producer leave so we can go do the Cole show.
Yeah. Excellent. By the way, I'd like to know when late fall is, because that's when the Kennedy's supposed to be open. I think it's late fall. Open up the express lates. Let's go. We'll see you at 1:00. Cole Kmet, the 85 coming up tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody.
We all silly like the mayor.